Welcome to the Housing Commission's June 5th, 2024 regular Housing Commission meeting. This is a hybrid meeting with Housing Commission members, city staff, and members of the public participating in the Oak Conference Room and via Zoom. I will call the meeting to order at 6:38 p.m. I would like to introduce staff, Housing Commission and Housing Commission members present, and I'll turn it over to staff. Oh, actually, you're supposed to. Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
It's blue.
yeah.
Keep going. Housing manager Tim Wong, management analysis Adam Patterson, management analysis Ariana Milton. I'll now do the roll call. Commissioner Beal, Bealy. Present, right? Vice Chair Campos absent, Commissioner Leach. Here. Commissioner Bierman. Here. Commissioner Oldham absent, Commissioner Portillo absent, and present. Now I'll turn it over. Yes, so, Chair.
Yeah.
Tim, will you please provide instructions to the Housing Commission and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
So thank you, Chair Walker and members of the Housing Commission. Welcome everyone to the June 5th regular meeting of the Housing Commission. And thank you for attending, and just a welcome to Commissioner Bealy. Pardon, I'm remote today. Can't say hi to you in person, but welcome. Staff will engage cameras and microphones to make presentations and respond to the members of the Housing Commission. For members of the public who are in attendance and wish to provide public comment on an item on tonight's agenda, after the chair calls for public comment on the item you wish to speak on, for virtual participants, please engage in the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. For those who are calling in from a landline or cell phone, please press *9. For those in person, please complete a speaker card and bring them to staff's desk. And that concludes the instructions, and I return the meeting to the chair. Thank you.
Under public comment, the public may address the Housing Commission on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the Housing Commission once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. You are not required to provide your name or city of residence, but it is helpful. The Housing Commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the Housing Commission cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment other than to provide general information. Tim, do we have any public comment?
I'll defer to Ariana or Adam. Do we have anybody for public comment?
We do, yes.
Okay.
Bear with us, public commenter. So is Karen Grove?
Hi.
Karen,
You can probably hear my dog, and I can hear your little people too. Karen Grove, resident of Menlo Park. Good evening, Housing Commission and Chair Walker, and staff. I don't know if you think I should be speaking during the informational items. Just let me know. I'm going to make comments about the BMR program that go beyond the rent calculation. So I'll pause a minute and ask if I should be making that now or later.
Why don't you go ahead, since you're talking more about the general BMR program versus specifically on the rent.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things I hoped you would maybe be talking more about is how the program is monitored year over year for the lifetime of the developer's obligation to the city. Because the subsidy is really public funds. And so I'm wondering how we monitor that the developers or the property manager is complying with the obligation. For example, I know that somewhere in the policy, it states that every year the tenant's income will be recertified to make sure that they still qualify for the unit. And so I'm wondering, and I don't see anywhere where we say that we will also monitor the property manager to ensure, for example, that they are keeping rents within the range that matches the affordability requirement of the unit. And also that BMR units are actually occupied by appropriate BMR tenants. And I guess I'm going to leave it there. I had something else to say, but well, it is about rents. I know how, I think I know, but I'm going to listen, how rents are calculated. And I believe they're no more than 30% of the maximum income of one of the range of incomes who qualify. And there is a problem when somebody who's at the lower end of the range wants a unit. Sometimes their income isn't high enough to assure the property manager that they can pay the rent reliably, and so they don't get the unit. I know that in Redwood City, we learned when I was on the commission, they require the rent to be set as 30% of the income in the middle of the threshold. And I don't know if that's the right answer to the problem, but I just wanted to sort of just provide some history. That was something we talked about several years ago. And things move slowly, so it hasn't happened or even been thoroughly vetted yet, but that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. And there are no other public comments at this time.
Okay. Under regular business, the Housing Commission receives informational presentations in addition to considering policy matters and administrative actions. First, we have item D1 to approve the Housing Commission meeting minutes for May 1st, 2024. Are there any clarifying questions from Housing Commission on D1? No. Is there any public comment for item D1?
No, there's no other comments at this time.
And assuming there.
I move to approve the Housing Commission meeting minutes for May 1st.
Happy the second.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Leach and a second by Commissioner Merriman to approve the Housing Commission meeting minutes for May 1st, 2024. I will now do a roll call vote. Commissioner Beely.
Aye.
Okay, Vice Chair Campos is absent. Commissioner Leach. Aye. Commissioner Merriman.
Yes.
Commissioner O'Nap is absent. Commissioner Portillo is also absent, and Chair Walker.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Next, we have item D2, the continuation of a previous item from May-1's Housing Commission. Select a presenter and or presenters and discuss presentation for the City Council for the Housing Commission annual rollout or report out. Can staff provide a quick recap on the continued item?
Yes, so thank you, Chair Walker. As mentioned, this is a continuation from the May meeting item. And since that time, a subcommittee of Chair Walker, Vice Chair Campos, and Commissioner Merriman had been formed to work on the draft presentation, and they prepared some talking points for the Housing Commission's review. And that draft PowerPoint can be found on page 19 of your staff report. In addition, from the May item, staff has requested that the Housing Commission elect a presenter. Per the commission rules, it says a representative. Typically, it's the chair, but it doesn't specifically name the chair. So elect a presenter or presenters. And to start with that, so yeah, staff suggests approaching the item in two parts. Elect the presenter, first of all, and then discuss the talking points as a housing commission. So that concludes staff's presentation on this item.
The item is now open for public comment. Do we have any?
No public comments on this.
The item is now open for housing commission. Clarifying questions and discussion. The main thing I wanted to bring to all was, were we comfortable with what is said in this PowerPoint presentation here? Did we capture everybody's sentiment?
If we could just kind of run through the slides a little bit.
Yes.
Those have any friendly suggestions or, input, so that when whoever does the presentation, it's like a representation of all of us.
Tim, do you mind, heading on the narration of the presentation, or should is it customary that I read through it, or?
My apologies, but Commissioner Merriman kind of broke up. Was it Commissioner Merriman who made that statement? I'll be happy to respond, just if you could repeat what you said.
Maybe we can just run through the slides. I can narrate them a little bit and see if we can get to a place of consensus as a group.
Oh, okay.
Just let me know when you're ready.
Okay. So, we usually would introduce the commission, if you're a chair or vice chair. In the past, it's been any number of setups. Sometimes the chair goes alone, sometimes the chair and vice chair do it. I have a slight preference for the second, because then the next year, if the vice chair becomes the chair, there's a little bit of a continuity, a sharing and understanding of, you kind of share the knowledge of how this is done, which is really a great opportunity for our commission to connect with council. We only do it a couple of times a year at best. So with that, we have the desire to work on our work plan this year, and it's a great accomplishment that the housing element has gotten certified, and from that certification comes several years that we need to get into, mostly city staff, but also the commission has a role in that. And most pressing has been, since we are housing advocates, to call upon the city to look at how high density affordable housing can be developed. As it was, as some of those sites were really the backbone of the housing element, the sites that are likely to develop. Draft letter from Commissioner Leach, so that will be attached.
Yeah, it's attached, actually. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's page 12. Great.
So I think we just have to discuss the presentation.
How many minutes do you usually have? Like
Just a few.
just a few minutes?
Yeah.
And the goal is to just kind of bring some things to the forefront and report what we've been doing.
Yeah, I think we make recommendations from the council, really direct staff, prioritizes staff time. If we have suggestions, or if we have an opinion as to, how the council could focus their energies in ways that could have an impact, this is our opportunity to share that. That's my 2 cents.
And if I could just quickly interject, also the annual report out, it's kind of a twofold approach, in that annual report out reports to the commission, to the council, what the housing commission has done, but the following month is the consideration of the annual work plan for the following year. So, even from the annual report out, some feedback from the council could be incorporated into the Housing Commission's preparation of its annual work plan for 2025.
Well, it looks to me like it's, I'm trying to think what this is. So the down on slide, the one with the title downtown parking lot upzoning, this is just kind of like a summary of what, we're just directing them to kind of.
I think
Try
I
to
missed the
streamline the
meeting in
process.
February. I missed a meeting in February where there was a discussion.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, so this goes back to my letter and that.
Yes.
Okay. And so when, in my letter, I did like a little bit of research, but I'm not an expert, RFPs, RFIs, you know, I think the idea was to try to keep it from getting locked down. And that, I mean, that's what we kind of talked about as Commissioner Pimentel was saying, you know, rather than you kind of skip a step and do the feasibility study after doing the request for information. I don't know if that would, you know, you have a lot of experience with this. I think you guys are both more familiar with the process.
Well, I think there are trade-offs, so it'd be good to hear from council.
Right.
If council members have a lot of consensus already about what they want to see there, then in my opinion, it would be helpful to package that up in such a way so that when folks are responding to the RFP or RFQ, they're putting something out there within the realm of possibilities. Otherwise, sometimes I've seen, you know, folks respond to an RFQ or an RFP, and all of the proposals are all over the place, and staff, staff doesn't really necessarily know how to evaluate them, if they haven't gotten some direction from the city council as well as to scoring criteria, and sometimes it's a lot of work for a lot of folks that then kind of get thrown out and then it happens again, and you know, so there's a lot of different approaches. Happy to go into trade-offs of each of them, but it would be helpful probably to have staff sketch out a little bit at some point, some of the trade-offs in approaches. I know, Tim, you certainly have seen it happen in other cities. And we've had a chance to connect a little bit about, you know, a very prescriptive RFP and the types of responses you're getting versus something more open-ended where you may see some creativity in the market. There's some sweet spot in the middle.
Yeah,
That you
yeah.
get a
Yeah.
Target in a movie theater and this.
Yeah.
Who knows what people will propose, but if we have a sense of what we want, we may want to put out there that a proposal should have X, Y, Z, or something to make it so you can compare them. So I like the general idea of trying to expedite, not sitting on it, you know, a leader of the affordable housing field, CEO of Eden Housing, 20 years ago, chair of the Housing Commission. And that moment that her ideas were to try to develop the parking lot site for affordable housing. So this is a new idea, and it would be great if in 10 years we had housing there.
And so we're looking at this being 100% affordable.
I don't.
And affordable is moving, I'm asking, I should say, are we looking at this to be 100% affordable in the parking lots downtown?
Well, I thought, well, my understanding was that it's city owned so that it could be 100%.
And affordable could be like, you know, ELI, VLI, you know, moderate, you know, so it could be. The moderate income is high, so it's aspirational for some of us.
Yeah, just to respond to Commissioner Leach's, the program H4G specifically states prioritize affordable housing on city-owned parking lots, and it's to develop 345 affordable units on city parking lots.
Yeah.
Ask the question.
Oh, sure.
Affordable mean, BMR only essentially, or?
It's a good question. Yeah, I think it would be,
Yes, okay.
there's many.
It
a lot.
does say prioritize, and it doesn't specifically state, but I think that's the main aim, is to provide affordable housing on those sites.
Yeah, so I think, when we were talking about, that what, in the meeting that, I think it was March. I don't remember, where we were yeah, it was March, because that was Commissioner, Pimentel's last meeting, was just the idea was to, along the lines of what you were saying, Nevada, just how can we expedite this, because it's big, a lot of moving pieces, it's really needed, and so that was the spirit of the letter. So it sounds like, I think it's, I think I think this looks good. Thank you for putting this together.
I mean, I think above all, this is our chance to express a lot of enthusiasm.
Right.
And the city has resources and expertise to be able to advance this project.
Right.
Either through its own work or through third-party work. There's plenty of folks that help cities do exactly this type of thing. I know somebody still has to manage those folks, but it is possible to supplement capacity. And the city's in a really great position relative to many of its neighbors, in that it has a local revenue generator and has funds to be able to potentially advance this. It's great that it's part of the housing element, and one foot in front of the other. Right, and commission, our community would like to see some progress there. And I imagine the council will have opinions and feedback that would be helpful.
Yeah, okay.
And at this, report out, will they, respond with their thoughts as to what their priority is for the parking lot? Or are they just hearing what we would like to see as a advising body?
My understanding that as part of the report out, the council may respond. They might not be required to, but they may respond. But it sounds like, yes, the Housing Commission wants to make it very clear to get these parking lots developed sooner than later. And they may agree, they may put it on your work plan, continue it. So, yes.
Would it be appropriate for us to suggest a study session or something that where an RFP could be framed up a little bit? There's many steps between issuing one and where we are now. And so maybe I'll ask you this question. What are some of the next steps that staff sees, and what would be appropriate in terms of us highlighting how to make progress?
Just to refer that in terms of the housing element program, it talks about initiate the feasibility study, issue the RFP, and complete development entitlements. So I think it's appropriate for the Housing Commission, if they wish to suggest or recommend that, for example, Commissioner Merriman, you may have mentioned an RFP that's maybe not too prescriptive, or at least a RFP that meets kind of in the middle, the sweet spot. And I think it's appropriate that if you wish to have the city council have a study session to discuss the parameters of the RFP, it's a suggestion. You're an advisory body, and so you're passing along that recommendation to the council.
That's a yes to, suggesting a study session.
Sounds exciting. We tackle all the recommendations that we need to.
Yes. I volunteer myself.
Yay, oh,
Just to get the experience of, doing the report out.
I second that nomination.
Okay, so,
And then there would be someone would, I guess we can't nominate vice chair.
he's not here, yes, I don't know if we can do that, so is there anyone else who is,
Or maybe we can.
Is there anyone
Invite her to do it, and if she can't do it. we can-
I'd be happy to help Nevada. I think that this is something that you have a lot of expertise in.
Yeah, my preference would be to attend, but not to do the presentation, and if there, if our chair, vice chair team wants some support on a specific question, we will jump in. I'm also trying to maintain my conflict of interest, given that my employer one day wants to submit for the RFP, so.
Right.
It's true. Keeping some separation there, and would appreciate helping through with that on this item.
Well, I'm happy to attend as well if, I think my preference, I think it's probably preferable if the vice chair as well, since you're doing it next year, but I'd be happy if that's not possible. I could be a substitute for start.
Okay, so it sounds like we have a motion by Commissioner, or excuse me, Chair Walker, and a second by Commissioner Leach for the selection of Chair Walker and Vice Chair Campos with Commissioner Leach as the lovely alternates to present the annual report out to City Council. I will now do a roll call vote. Commissioner Beanley. Vice Chair Campos is absent. Commissioner Leach.
Aye.
Commissioner Merriman. Commissioner O'Neill is absent, Commissioner Portillo is absent, and Chair Walker. Aye. The motion passes.
okay, so we are at our informational items, B1.
Oh, sorry to interrupt, but we also have to do a motion for the
Oh,
talking points for the report out if the commission's ready to do that.
What's that?
A motion and second for the content. Yeah, so do I have a motion for the approval of the content for the report out?
I'm an editor. And I'd like to volunteer my services to do a proof.
Second that volunteer, no,
So, but the content's fine, not changing the content, maybe changing the, so can we do that? Can we say approve the content with?
Absolutely, to refine the language, as long as the housing
Yeah,
commission
I know.
is satisfied with the
Yeah, just
content or the talking points.
Yeah, just a couple proofreading nitpicks. And other than that, so yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then, for your notes, staff, I think we discussed trying to put a little bit of a finer point on some steps that could happen, and that would be, easier for the commission to do if we had a little indication from staff about next steps as we see them between issuing an RFP and where we are today. If that's council study session, if that's, if not a feasibility study, it's what I heard is the previous conversation. They didn't want to kind of get overly bogged down in study and not even action and response and ideas. That was the spirit of the conversation. If not that, then what? But that maybe is something that could be discussed in subcommittee. If we need to, does that make sense? And
Nevada, you're talking about, the slide with next steps, flesh that out more.
yeah, just a little bit. Been wanting to really, hear the recommendations of staff, as close to what, how a city would operationalize this kind of a goal.
So,
If that makes sense.
not sure, what you said, how you're looking for, recommendations from the staff on, you know, how. You
Yeah,
said,
because I think through next steps of not having a feasibility study and issuing an RFP. You know, I can think of what would go in the RFP. Is there a study session where the council would talk about what they'd like to see there? Because putting on another hat as somebody who has responded to RFPs, there is a moment in which you look at it and you say, does it seem like the city knows what it wants? Shall we spend $40,000 on architectural drawings and a feasibility study and 2 months worth of work and something that's unwinnable? So it's great to get ideas from the market. Will you get ideas from many smaller nonprofits who may or may not have the capacity to put that kind of resources, money at risk, basically,
right,
business development, cash at risk? I don't know how many folks would respond to that.
yeah,
So I think you want to have some kind of a balance between putting out an RFP that seems like somebody would want to respond to it. And there is an analysis that goes into that, which is this a council that knows what it wants? Is this a city that seems like it's clear how we will be evaluated? Do we have a chance of winning? I mean, so I think that's where a lot of my comments are going towards, is wanting when it gets issued to be something that's likely to get some good responses.
okay. So that would be under provide input to the development of parking lot sites, or a separate bullet point.
I think so, provide input. I mean, if you, at staff, would you envision that you would write this RFP? And how would you go about that? So that's what I'm asking the questions, like, what do you think you all would need to take next steps on that?
Okay.
If not a feasibility study, then, but there probably still needs to, there's probably some interim steps. For review or analysis.
So who administrative, who defines the feasibility study? Is it staff or is it an outsourced?
They probably likely a consultant, you know, overview, like oversight for staff.
It's a joint effort between staff but we are using, we would be using some outside sources to help with the feasibility study.
And a study session, as you were suggesting, is this a smaller aspect of that, or just?
A chance for housing staff to hear from council about what they might, how they might want to evaluate proposals.
So how would we put that in, how would we have that here, like suggest a study session or get feedback on? I'm going one further back. How do we move forward with our presentation here?
I'm not sure, and that's really why I put it back on staff. There's a few steps you can see from your experience through what.
Yeah, what steps would we suggest to flesh out the bullet point on provide input in the development of the parking lot sites? So you're saying, what do they need from us?
Or whether they need from council.
Right, yeah.
Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking just to move forward, we could just say, have first a motion and a second to approve the general content of the presentation with like future refinements to happen to the language and the actual talking points.
And I think that I agree, and maybe with the Housing Commission, I think the general tenor is make it a priority sooner than later.
Yeah.
And I think that that is one of the Housing Commission's talking points that will ring loud and clear. And then also maybe even some of that emphasis can be a little more generalized to say that if it's going to happen sooner than later, we maybe not make it as prescriptive as needed or something along those lines, but just prepare something in the most expedient manner possible. Does that kind of summarize the Housing Commission's sentiment?
Yeah, we want to make it, we want to expedite things, but, and that was the spirit behind saying, do the RFP before the feasibility study. But I mean, Nevada has some good points about like, if it's too open-ended, are we gonna just get flooded with, off the cuff suggestions and then get bogged down there? So I like the idea of finding a compromise, not too prescriptive, but not too open-ended.
Yeah, as Commissioner Merriman mentioned, yeah, the sweet spot, whatever that may be. But I think that's understanding that's the Housing Commission's desires.
Okay, so I'd be open to moving to approve the content with some fine tuning on the steps towards building the parking lot sites and some proofreading. Just as that wordy enough, or should I add more words in there?
A second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Leach and a second by Chair Walker to approve the general content of the report of City Council with some refinement to the language and editing to the talking points. I will do a roll call vote now. Commissioner Beely. Vice Chair Campos is absent. Commissioner Leach.
Aye.
Commissioner Merriman.
Aye.
Commissioner Onath is absent. Commissioner Portillo is absent, and Chair Walker.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes.
Now we are at item B, informational item. Management analysis, Ariana Milton will now give a presentation. This item.
Okay, good evening, commissioners, staff, and members of the public. My name is Ariana Milton, and I am a management analyst with the housing team in the city of Menlo Park. Tonight, I will be giving a brief presentation on informational item B1, BMR rent calculations. Okay, so one of the biggest driving factors for BMR rent calculation in Menlo Park are the San Mateo County income limits. The Department of Housing and Community Development, also known as HCD, establishes income limits that are based on the area median income, also known as AMI, for each county in each state. These limits are used to determine household eligibility to participate in administered housing assistance programs, i.e. BMR housing. And as you can see, this is the 2024 San Mateo County, or excuse me, San Mateo County area median income limits. They were just released later last month. And as a highlight or something to note, San Mateo County's area median income limit is the highest in California, and it's tied with San Francisco County and Marin County. So keeping that in mind. So next is our BMR guidelines. They also have a large effect on how we calculate BMR rent. The affordable rents are governed by the BMR city guidelines in conjunction with San Mateo County's income limits. Section 11.1.2 of the BMR guidelines state that BMR units may be rented for monthly amounts not exceeding 30% of the income limit for extremely low, very low, subsidized low, or low households adjusted for occupancy. Okay, so getting into the meat of the BMR rent calculation equation. So the maximum affordable rent is based on an assumed household's monthly income, and all utilities paid by the landlord. BMR rents are calculated by taking 30% of the income category adjusted for the assumed household size, and then divided by 12 months, which make up a year, minus the utility allowance. As you can see, the assumed households are based on the following household sizes for each unit. A studio, it's 1 bedroom. 1 bedroom is technically seen as 1.5 persons. It's very interesting. 2 bedrooms are 3 persons. 3 bedrooms are 4.5 people. Again, just 3 and a 4-bedroom unit is assumed household size of 6 people. So getting into the utility allowance. The utility allowances are actually set by the Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD, and are used as a reference for Menlo Park's BMR program. They can include anything that the landlord dictates outside of just electricity. It could be rental insurance, we say that, as something that has to be required in order for people to live in those units. Utilities must be subtracted from the maximum rental amount. Example, we're using Loom for this presentation's example, but they actually have elected to pay for their own utilities. And then here we see the utility allowance grid. For studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and a 3 bedroom. So these amounts have to be subtracted from the monthly rent for BMR units. Okay, so the 75% BMR cap. It's also outlined in the City of Menlo Park's BMR guidelines. Rental amounts for BMR units shall not exceed 75% of comparable market rate rents. And this cap actually serves as a tool for how much developers can charge for their BMR units. And it also serves as a layer of protection for potential renters. So Loom is a development that was just marketed, and I've decided to use that for the calculation examples here. So the Loom development has units for very low, low, and moderate income levels. Studios and 1 bedrooms for very low and low, and studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and can't see that there, 1 3-bedroom for the moderate income levels. We also need to make sure that, oh, thanks for that. We also have the market rate rents here as well. That's important to keep in mind, the average market rate rent, because that's where that 75% cap comes in, and the utility allowances as well. But the final BMR net rents, the things that you see in red right there, those are the rents for the loom developments. Like those are the actual rates.
What does red mean?
Red is just highlighting that those are.
Those are the.
Mhm. So I also included this. I'm a visual learner, especially when it comes to math. So I decided to kind of put this in just to break it down even further. The example that I used was the 2-bedroom at the moderate income level for Loop. So here we do have is the 1,000 or 189,000 is the 2023 income limit for a 2-bedroom moderate unit with an assumed household size of 3 people. We're using the 2023 income limits because by the time we started doing the marketing for Loom, the 2024 hadn't been out yet. So that's what we used moving forward. So you're taking that income limit and you're taking 30% of it, which equals out to 56,700. And then from there, you're dividing that by 12 months in a year, which is going to equal 4,725. And then you're taking then the utility allowance of 281, and then that $4,444 is the max BMR net rent. Now, when it comes to the rent that actually is going to be paid for this unit, you're taking the market rate rent, which if you go back to that slide, was the 5651. And then you're taking the 75% cap of that, and that's going to equal out to 4,238. From there, you're going to take out the utility allowance, which again is 281, and that's going to equal $3,957.25 as your final BMR rent for that unit. And that is our presentation. I'll turn it back over to the chair.
This is now open for clarifying questions and discussion. Question. So the $4,444, with recertification and all that in mind, so each year they recertify, they can raise it up to 4,444 or?
So that's the maximum that it could be. Now we have that cap that comes into play, which helps with that. But that 4,444 is the max that it can be charged.
The initial movement. And then what happens?
Initial movement.
So you move in and you're.
Oh, as far as raising of the rents, that, Tim, do you mind jumping on that one?
Yeah, just to chime in, yes, Commissioner Merriman is correct. That's how we set the initial rents, and then rents increase per HCD increases. So for example, between 23 and 24, I believe the median income increased 6%. So per our guidelines, the property manager could increase it by that same 6%, but it is that's the initial rent calculation.
Does it get checked again based on market, or is that 75% constraint really only gonna work on the initial movement? I think I know the answer to that. I just.
I'm sorry,
think
yeah. It's headphones.
So there is a, in my opinion, a part of our BMR, guidelines that has the 75% of market concepts. It recognizes that area median incomes are generally out of whack in this county and pulled up really, really high, such that it can sometimes be above market. And I think that's really great. I think an initial movement that is a constraining factor that makes these homes more affordable. It's really important that affordable homes are actually affordable. That when they're coming in, once that they are developed, we want to see I mean, they're supposed to be a public benefit, and so they are a public benefit if they are more affordable than market, so I think that's great. I do have concerns that in year 2 or 3 or 4, there doesn't seem to be, again, a check as to whether or not there's still 75% of market. And it's my intuition, though, not my, I think it does sometimes run away and then the units get pretty close to market. Which minimizes the public benefit of the homes that are part of the program.
Okay. Right.
I'm sorry, Tim, were you responding to that?
Oh, well, Commissioner Merriman makes a good point, and I think the member of the public also had a comment about monitoring and just looking at annual certifications, all those. Just to let you know, staff is looking into revising our BMR guidelines to consider many things, including calculation of rent, how potentially we could calculate rent differently, and also to strengthen our guidelines in other areas. So those are things that, yes, we will, staff will be exploring within the next 6 months in how to tighten up the program, if you
There's one other area that kind of struck me, and that's, who determines market rents?
market rents are based
Go ahead.
Well,
The house in-
so it is the developer.
Very, so there's a lot of subjective, it's an art, not a science on this, having put together comps for the market generally. I could go into it, the methodology is probably beyond what we need to hear tonight. I may also suggest that staff look at this and understand, the biases of who might be providing that information and whether or not there's a way to check that as well. I looked at average market rent in December for the county and then by neighborhood, and it is very different depending on how wide you set those comps. Not all San Mateo County is the same. The coast, North Fair Oaks, Daly City, Bellhaven, East Palo Alto, these are places that market rent is not the same as what published numbers will be. And so, your market study, it's important to do, it's important to understand that. The fundamentals there, so either we could offer more framework for how those market rate rents are calculated. Or any number of other suggestions that I have about looking at that.
How many BMR units are occupied in the city of Menlo Park? Do we know that number?
Is there a report through that?
I know that, oh, sorry,
Go ahead. No, Ariana, go ahead. You're putting together that database, so yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. So one of the long-term projects that I'm working on is creating a that has all of the current BMR units, at what income level they're offered at, how many, what kind of unit type, so for current and for future development. So kind of keeping my eye on all of the developments like Parkline, Willow Village, things like that, developments that can bring a lot of units that are still kind of either in review or kind of in limbo right now. So right now, that's what I'm working on as far as.
So you're looking into current and future? Okay.
Yeah, there's a staff that has what it was at that time, so I can resurface that. It's a small percentage of the studies overall has
Yeah.
staff, but
Yeah, and I can also provide that information to you guys as well, just because I'm working on it, so.
I think a lot more has come online in the last few years.
And, maybe presented for you, but what happens if recertification for those who no longer meet the minimum income?
So if I heard correctly, Chair Walker, you asked what happens if those those don't meet the income levels?
Yeah, so
If-
upon, yeah.
If they
After
exceed that income, we have a provision in our affordable housing agreement that if they exceed the allowable income, what happens is they will not get kicked out, but let's say it's a moderate income unit, then the developer must provide another the next available unit must be a moderate income unit. So over time, if there are over income households, then the BMR units will start floating in a development. But let's say it's a 2-bedroom moderate income unit, the tenants are over income, they don't get kicked out. It's the property manager is required to provide another 2-bedroom at moderate income in the future. However, those who are over income, their rent gets adjusted. It does not stay at the BMR level. So it's an effort to prevent displacement of that particular household.
So it goes to market rate usually.
Usually, depending, yes, usually, but with moderate income units, we have seen that moderate income units are starting to approach market rate units.
Or in some cases exceed.
What's that?
In some cases exceed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And just to add on, Ariana did mention that San Mateo County has the highest median income in the state. And it's because of that, everything's based on the HCD income. Hence, the BMR rates are higher than other jurisdictions because of the high median income, and everything is based off of that. So, yeah. Just to further clarify.
I mean, if you could just go quickly back to the numbers, it looked like for a family of 4, very low income is now $97,000 a year. And median income 186, very low income 97,000. That's 3x minimum wage. Like, we have a lot of work to do to provide homes for folks who are extremely low income and acutely low income. Extremely low income is 2 times minimum wage. So the numbers here are really exaggerated. It's unbelievable to me in a lot of ways.
You know, I find these, I put these up on my social media earlier just to like, it's a little bit of a reality check. I was stunned when I first saw these.
I think that database will help us determine like how many people in these categories are being housing successfully too.
Well, really don't want presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a chance to look at the program. There's a lot to work with there. I think there is so, you know, given what we're looking at here and how it's playing out, I think there's probably some at least a real good conversation.
It's really, the numbers are stunning. They really are. So that's what we're here. Thank you it's very informative.
With that, do we have any individual commissioner updates. Okay. Do we have any recommendations for future agenda items?
Well, we were gonna do, this doesn't have to be part of our meeting, but, maybe a refresher on the Brown Act. And that could be like you know, I think when I first became a commissioner, I studied something on that, like, it could even just be I could look myself, but that if there could be like an officially disseminated information on that, because I find myself, you know, it's hard to. And how it applies to Menlo Park, you know, because I know sometimes when we were out, we have to be careful of certain events, how many of us go. And some other events, it's not, we don't have to be careful.
Is it on like commissioner behavior? That's what the Brown Act.
Yeah, that's right. We're all wild. No, it has to do with whether, if there's more than three, you've established a quorum. Have I got that right, Tim? Yes. So
Yes, as long as you know, it has to, it's kind of like a transparency requirement for advisory bodies. And that's an excellent segue. I don't know if everyone received their June 13th invitation. It's the new commissioner orientation and appreciation. So I think that's June 13th, 5:30 to 7:30, I believe. But as the first part of that, it's for new commissioners, and we will have two attorneys from two city attorneys, if you will, who will be talking specifically about the Brown Act, ethics, and one more item. Again, I mentioned it was for new commissioners, but commissioners are required to attend this every 2 years. So again, it's June 13th, 5:30 to 7:30. I think I got the times right, and it'll be held at the city council chambers.
Sounds
And
good.
That's my nephew's graduation.
okay.
Is it like
And-
a Zoom or something that I could?
Yeah, there's a
I'm
Zoom.
not gonna do that.
The only thing I could say is there's a Zoom option.
No,
But
that works. I
it,
can do that.
okay, all right, okay. It's June 13th. So if you haven't RSVP'd, please do. I think the invitation was sent out a couple weeks ago from the city clerk.
Ooh, I didn't RSVP by Baker.
Okay.
I'm RSVPing now.
And well, just while we're talking about staff updates, I'll just continue to go ahead. To let the commission know that in August, we will have a couple items for the Housing Commission. We may have a NOFA agreement that will require Housing Commission review. And also we'll start on our annual work plan in August. Oh, and just another point for the presentation, the report out, the two dates are August 13th and August 27th, I believe. And so I have tentatively scheduled it for August 27th, if that works for Chair Walker and Vice Chair Campos. Again, it's tentative, and it's either the 13th or the 27th. And
August is near for me. So either is fine.
And then lastly, the items for July. And so propose to cancel that meeting. No July, besides it's July 3rd. I don't know what your plans are for the 4th of July, so it's probably
tradition, yeah.
prudent to go ahead and cancel that meeting.
Yeah.
And that concludes staff's updates. If we cancel the July meeting, there's no formal action needed since we don't have any agenda items. We'll just post a cancellation notice. And
Sounds good.
Okay,
So meeting adjourned at, what is that, 6:40, 7:40?
7:43. All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
See you all in August. Or in August.
Yes.